I'm Nancy Cavey, National ERISA and Individual Disability Attorney. Welcome to Winning Isn't Easy. Before we get started, I've got to give you a legal disclaimer. This podcast is not legal advice. The Florida Bar Association says I have to say this, so I've said it. Nothing, however, will prevent me from giving you an easy-to-understand overview of the disability insurance world, the games the disability carriers play, and what you need to know to get the disability benefits you deserve. So off we go. Now, I've been on a kick recently talking about neuropathic pain disorders, and I've got some more. You may think, well, why should I be listening to this episode? Because I don't have a neuropathic disorder. But you probably have a medical condition that causes pain. And the disability carrier plan's approach to evaluating pain claims, including neuropathic pain, is the same. So I'm specifically going to be talking about a number of medical conditions that are perhaps a little bit unusual and not always seen in the disability claim world. But again, I think these types of medical conditions give you a roadmap into how a disability carrier or plan is going to evaluate your claim. So bear with me here. I'm going to talk about neuropathic pain and a Social Security disability claim and what impact that will have on an ERISA disability claim. I'm going to talk about how disability carriers like Reliance Standard will deny Charcot-Marie tooth diseases by using social media searches and what can happen to your ERISA disability claim. And I'm lastly going to close with a piece on a chronic inflammatory demyelinating polyneuropathy, lots of words there, and your ERISA disability insurance claim. Remember, we're going to talk about pain, painful conditions, the impact that a Social Security disability claim can have on your ERISA claim. I'm going to talk about the use of social media and the techniques that carriers or plans use in denying claims. Got it? Let's take a break.
Have you been robbed of your peace of mind from your disability insurance carrier? You owe it to yourself to get a copy of Robbed of Your Peace of Mind, which provides you with everything you need to know about the long-term disability claim process. Request your free copy of the book at caveylaw.com today.
Welcome back to Winning Isn't Easy. Let's talk about neuropathic pain and a Social Security disability claim. Now, neuropathy is a nerve disorder that causes damage to your peripheral nervous system. Your peripheral nervous system is like a track, if you will. It is the nervous system that will transmit signals from the brain and the spinal cord to the rest of your body. It kind of follows a track, if you will. Now, a disorder, a neuropathic disorder, can cause pain, numbness, and tingling of your hands and feet. That can make it impossible to do the lightest physically demanding work that you have done, both for Social Security claims purposes and long-term disability claims purposes. And in a Social Security claim, you also, at step 5, have to show that you can't do other work in the mythical, not real world national economy in view of your age, education, skills, and restrictions, limitations. These two tests sound a bit like the tests that's used in an ERISA case. Own occupation and any occupation. But in both instances, in a Social Security claim and in an ERISA long-term disability claim, you've got the burden of proof. Now, I try to use my Social Security experience as a Social Security attorney in handling neuropathy claims in the long-term disability context. So let's dive into that a little bit. Under the Social Security view of cases, they're going to divide neuropathies into two categories. There's diabetic neuropathy and neuropathies caused by treatment for cancer. There are other causes of neuropathy. It's not uncommon to see neuropathic issues in MS, for example, and I use for MS listings in the Social Security cases and bring all of these kinds of techniques, if you will, to an ERISA claim. So a diabetic neuropathy situation is where high blood sugar levels will damage nerves in the hands and feet. And that means you might have difficulty holding a knife, a fork, buttoning buttons, or using your hands to manipulate things. You've got weakness, tingling, and numbness that can make it difficult to walk, stand, and sit. So you may have to alternate sitting and standing, and that can make it hard to do not only your own occupation, but any other occupation. Now, there is also something called chemotherapy-induced neuropathy, and drugs used to treat cancer can damage nerves, much like the damage that's done in diabetic neuropathy. And an example of that is Paxlovid peripheral neuropathy. So what I want to do is kind of tie this together a little bit for you. In the Social Security world, they evaluate neuropathies primarily, as I said, based on diabetic neuropathies and based on chemotherapy-induced neuropathies. But they also will evaluate neuropathies under orthopedic conditions and neurological listings. So there are many times when I have a person who has a herniated disc in their neck or their low back, and I'm trying to argue that they meet a listing for Social Security purposes. But more importantly, I am getting physicians to complete forms called residual functional capacity forms. Now, you may say, well, what does that have to do with an ERISA disability claim? Because my doctor there is filling out an attending physician statement form. I am taking the neuropathy forms that I get in my Social Security claims, and I am amending the attending physician statement form in an ERISA disability claim. Because I find that the attending physician statement forms that are used in an ERISA disability claim don't ask the right questions, particularly when it comes to neuropathic pain issues. So I want to supplement the APS form with the forms I use in my Social Security case, because I want the disability carrier to understand the right restrictions and limitations so that they can determine whether or not you're able to do your own occupation and any occupation. Now, what's particularly important in these neuropathy cases is that the neuropathy is well developed. The cause of the neuropathy, diagnostic studies to confirm the basis of the neuropathy, what symptoms you experience both in your upper and lower extremities or any other part of your body that's been affected by the nerve damage. We also want to document the treatment that you've gotten and your response to the treatment. As a side note, that's particularly important in peripheral neuropathy that has been induced by treatment for cancer. Paxlovid treatment is commonly used to treat breast cancer with weekly treatment plans. And studies have shown that women who get dose-dense treatment are more likely to experience induced peripheral neuropathy than those who get it weekly. So it's the frequency of the treatment that's important in the induced peripheral neuropathy case. Now, that's normally, as I've said, characterized by numbness and tingling in the feet. That will limit daily activities. And so regardless of how the neuropathy is caused, I think that you should be documenting the nature of the treatment that you are getting for that peripheral neuropathy, because you want to document how the treatment is impacting your ability to sit, whether you have to alternate sitting and standing, whether or not you have problems using your hands and fingers, particularly manipulating things, because ultimately when we get to the, if you will, the Step 5 of a Social Security claim and the any occupation stage of Social Security, of a ERISA disability claim, we have to show that you can't do basically a sedentary job. Now, one of the big differences, of course, is that Social Security takes into consideration age, where the ERISA policies and plans generally don't. But the game, if you will, is certainly the same. In both instances, at Step 5 of a Social Security claim and at the any occupation stage, you need to develop the reasons why you can't do sedentary work. So the tingling in your feet might make it difficult for you to sit. You may have to alternate sitting and standing. It may interfere with your ability to walk. And of course, if you have upper extremity neuropathies, you may have problems that we've talked about with manipulating things, both with gross motor movement and fine motor movement, all of which adversely impact the ability to do sedentary work. Now, I find that many of the medications that are prescribed for peripheral neuropathy conditions, including those caused by treatment for cancer, cause fatigue and other side effects that impact a person's ability to concentrate and maintain pace and duration. So it's important that all of those things are developed in your medical records. It might be that the treatment is sort of quote unquote successful in terms of the cancer treatment, for example. The treatment that you've gotten might make your cancer in remission, but you've got the side effects. It might be that the diabetic neuropathy is quote unquote controlled with medication. But we have to be careful about using those kinds of words, remission and control, because disability carriers, much like the Social Security Administration, will seize on those kinds of words to say, okay, you're stable, you're in remission, your neuropathy is under control, and therefore we think that you can do your own occupation or you can do any occupation. So you need to be very careful if you are having a quote unquote remission or some improvement, because we still want to document the nature of your symptoms, how often you have those symptoms, how those symptoms impact your ability to function, whether or not you're having side effects of medication, the frequency and intensity of the side effects of medication, your restrictions, you need to alternate sitting and standing, the problems you have using your hands, concentration. But we also kind of want to tie this together, particularly if your improvement is quote unquote temporary, either because of the side effects of medication are reduced or because you're actually having some improvement. Be careful about the words that you use to the doctor about remission or improvement. Don't use words like better or improved. Quantify the change. Don't use what I call weasel words, okay? So we've covered a lot of information. I want you to digest this, think about it, and think about what impact it has on proof in a claim, regardless of whether or not it's a peripherally induced pain claim, side effects of cancer treatment, or what I'm going to call, in quotes, a generic pain claim. Got it? Let's take a break.